Okay, this video is going to set up a couple pages of notes that we'll just talk through here relatively briefly. And then it'll also set up a couple of assignments for our remote day today. With that, we're going to pick up on the top of page 8 here. So we're going to start on pages 8 and 9. And we're talking about ideological liberalism, which is a vision about how to organize human society for modern times. Then later on in our remote day today, we're going to talk some about ideological socialism, which is an alternative vision about how to organize human society for modern times. So at the very top of page 8, we're talking about the liberal economists here, and they're all free market capitalists. They believe in laissez-faire capitalism, and that means the government should not be involved in the economy. Okay, so laissez-faire capitalism, free market capitalism, is the economic system of liberalism. The government should stay out of the economy. And the foundational theory of free market capitalism is Adam Smith's theory of the invisible hand. And it basically says the market will identify your contribution and you'll get out of the market what you put in. So if you make a big time contribution, you'll get a big time reward. And if you don't make a big time contribution, then you won't get a big time reward. Let's put these considerations here on page 9. Okay, I'm going to pull up this PowerPoint slide here. You just put these considerations into your notes here on page 9. Looking at the PowerPoint slide, not that one, sorry, this one. Liberal economics. According to Adam Smith's theory of the invisible hand, compensation in the capitalist marketplace is based on one's contribution. And capitalism is a competition, so therefore there are winners and losers. Remember, liberalism seeks to create the most competitive environment possible. So again, Smith's theory says that you get out what you put in. The market will identify those who don't make a contribution or don't make a big time contribution, and they'll get nothing or next to nothing. The market will identify those who make a big time contribution or an enormous contribution, and they'll get a lot. They'll get an enormous amount of wealth. So what's the liberal outlook on inequality? The liberal outlook on inequality is that it's fair. It's completely fair because supposedly, in theory, according to liberalism, you get out of the marketplace what you put in. If you don't make a big time contribution, you get exactly what you deserve, according to liberalism. And again, liberalism claims to be a pure meritocracy. So your contribution, what you put in, is exactly what you get out. So according to liberal theory, free market capitalism is completely fair. And inequality and therefore poverty are completely inevitable because capitalism is a competition. And in any competition, there are winners and losers. And liberalism's message to anybody is if you don't like where you're currently at, then you need to do something about it. You need to work harder, you need to aspire, you need to innovate, et cetera, et cetera. So for the liberals, inequality is not only fair, and yeah, some people, according to liberalism, are definitely going to be living in poverty, but it's necessary because it motivates people. As I say, poverty is inevitable. That means it's going to happen, but because there's going to be winners and losers. But it's also necessary because without the fear of impoverishment, people won't be as driven as they would be otherwise. And that's what drives people to and motivates people to work hard, aspire, innovate, gain new ideas, gain new efficiencies, et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's look next, just bouncing between the notes handout and the PowerPoint slides here. Let's look next to page 10. And I'm going to put this PowerPoint slide back up on the video here, and you put that content here. We'll also reference, we obviously won't read this in the video, but I'll ask you to read this on your own. The contents of the PowerPoint slide we'll put here. It talks about, now we're shifting into some studies of socialism, and it talks about the underclass here, and it talks about some of the realities of the underclass, and it talks about why the proletariat, the urban workers, the urban underclass, views themselves increasingly as a group, as a common identity, in a basis of common identity and belonging as urban class workers. And it's based off of some shared realities that the urban working class in the early industrial revolution experienced. So this obviously wasn't for homework, but it says what realities forged this class consciousness and this identity amongst the urban working class, the proletariat. Let's put some of these considerations here. The big buzzword here, the big understanding is vulnerability. The urban working class lived in a real state of vulnerability in the early industrial revolution. There's no social safety net. There's no minimum wage. Excuse me. There's no unemployment. There's no food assistance. There's no housing assistance. There's no workplace safety regulations, etc. And liberalism basically says it's their fault they're in that condition. They haven't worked hard enough, or they haven't aspired, or they haven't innovated, or they haven't contributed. Some of the problems with that critique of poverty from liberalism is there's also no public education. So for the underclass, the possibilities for upward social mobility were next to impossible. I mean, surely there are some examples, but those are the examples that prove the general rule. The odds of moving up from the underclass to the middle class were exceedingly low. You're working 14, 16 hours a day from the time you're like 8, 9, 10 years old. There is no other education other than private education, and that costs money. So that's just not available to most people. And without an education in a modern industrial society, you just don't stand a chance. So the underclass, they're feeling very vulnerable. You know, you have one bad break or one misstep or bad luck, etc., you're potentially in dire poverty because there is no social safety net. And therefore, the underclass is feeling very vulnerable and they're feeling very trapped, as if there's no kind of avenue or pathway forward for themselves to actually move up in society. They're also like packed together in the cities. They're living in these slums without sanitation, without garbage disposal, without running water, without clean water sources, etc. And then additionally, they're not allowed to use their numerical advantage. There's a lot more of them. This is the underclass. This is the 90%. There's a lot more of them than the middle and the upper class. But as you can see at the bottom of page 10, they're not allowed to use their numbers to their advantage. And again, we're not going to read this on the video, but they try to strike. They try to organize strikes. That's made illegal. They try to organize labor unions to collectively bargain for better wages and working conditions. That's made illegal. They try to work through the existing political process to politically empower all men, including underclass men. That's blocked. So with all of these attempts, you know, they're feeling trapped in this system, which is supposedly a meritocracy. But in actuality, it's very difficult for the underclass to be actually moving up. They try different avenues to improve their lives and to improve their conditions, and it's just blocked, made illegal, blocked, etc. every step of the way. And these are the dynamics that give rise to ideological socialism. So if you look now at page 11, just like here's some quotes, and you can read those at your leisure. But just like we did for the ideological liberals, here are some of the major hallmarks of socialism. Okay, an ideology that sees human nature as essentially cooperative. It's based on a belief in group interest and cooperation. Individuals should commit themselves in their efforts towards collective betterment, and the government should be heavily involved in the economy to guarantee greater equality. Let's underline this. What they're talking about, what the socialist is talking about here, they're not talking about total equality. Like everybody has the exact same salary, everybody has the exact same amount of stuff, but they're talking about greater equality. So what realistically this means generally is the government gets involved in the economic life of the society, and the government especially taxes your highest income earners and then redistributes their wealth down to the bottom rungs of the socioeconomic ladder through any number of social safety net service programs, welfare programs, programs for public education, food assistance, housing assistance, et cetera, social welfare programs. Okay. And what this does is it doesn't make everybody exactly equal, but it shrinks the wealth gap. In laissez-faire free market capitalism, you're going to have these like enormous disparities in wealth, just like yawning enormous wealth gap. It's going to shrink those down and create greater equality, not total equality. So one of the assignments I'm asking you to go for here for the remote day is just like we did for the liberals. Here are the major hallmarks of socialism. Why would a socialist argue that this is the society, that this is the societal environment and dynamic that'll lead to utmost progress for humanity? We did the exact same thing for the liberals. How would the socialist, put yourself in the mindset of a socialist, put yourself in the shoes of a socialist, how would a socialist argue this out, that this is the societal environment that's going to bring about utmost progress for humanity? Both liberalism and socialism are forms of secular humanism, which says you put people in the best possible environment, you put people in the best possible societal dynamic, you're going to get the best possible results, and human beings are going to be able to affect their own progress. So that's the first. You jot the answer to that down on page 11, you take a screenshot, and you turn that in for assignment 1 for today's class. And the other assignment for today's class is here at the top of the page. Okay. And oh yeah, here's the socialism assignment, the one I just described. The liberalism versus socialism assignment, you download this liberalism versus socialism chart here. And then that liberalism versus socialism chart, it asks you, there's a bunch of statements here. And the statement you say, is that in keeping with ideological liberalism or is that in keeping with ideological socialism? So if that's in keeping with ideological liberalism, you'd write L. If that's in keeping with ideological socialism, you'd write S. So you need to identify, there are 25 statements here. You need to identify whether these are in keeping with liberalism or socialism for each one. Obviously, save that in a file format that you can write in, and then you save that and you send that in for the second assignment. The other thing I need you to download, I need you to create an Industrial Revolution folder, and I need you to save that liberalism versus socialism chart in there, and I need you to save the study guide in there as well. Our test for this unit of study is going to be the Friday coming out of spring break. So again, I need you to create a Industrial Revolution folder so we're keeping everything organized. You save the liberalism versus socialism chart in there because we're going to use that, and you're going to use that to help build up your study guide. Save that in a file format that you can edit and write in. Obviously, you need to do that here during this block. And then additionally, save the study guide, of course, in a file format that you can edit and write in as well so we can go for thorough, detailed responses to get ready for our test. When we return from spring break. Our test is going to be on Friday, March the 21st. Thanks so much. Just email me if you have any questions about any of this. Thank you.